So after today's video, you too can be a super Catholic. Actually, probably not. What's up, my people? Welcome back. So very glad you're here. Hope you are having a beautiful end of winter day. Yeah, we're getting pretty close to spring, and that's encouraging. Like I'm looking right now, and the trees have started to bud their little leaves, and that's freaking cool. Anyways, if you haven't already, like, subscribe, comment, do all the things that help spread this content throughout YouTube so that we can help more and more people grow in their faith. That's the goal, always help people grow in their faith. Man, okay, so today I want to talk about a subject that I've been thinking actually quite a lot about. And it has to deal with this thing that I think we as Catholics have a problem with. I'll finish my sentence. I think we have a problem, and I don't think enough of us are talking about it, talking about why it's a problem and what we ought to do in response. And I will admit up front, point number one, I am, as they say in the East, chiefest of sinners in this regard. Insufficient memory card. Oh, one of these days I'm going to be better at this. I think we have this problem within the Catholic Church, again, of which I am the chief sinner. Because I think somewhere along the line we bought into this modern secular idea of categorizing people so that we can other them. And by othering people, we can hopefully remove from our midst, as if that were possible, the people who are different from us and create a system in which we're more happy in. And to get right down to it, I think the problem that I want to talk about today is this idea of label and category. I notice this within myself all the time. I go to Mass, I look at the people around me, and figure out who's in, who's out, who's rad trad, who's liberal, who's woke, who's maybe not even Catholic. And by sorting all these people into categories, and I would say maybe not even categories, but subcategories. By putting people in subcategories, I feel safer. I know who the people are that I can trust. I know the people who are that I don't agree with. And by tidying up my spiritual home in this categorical way, I can feel better about myself. And I think that's becoming a real faith killer. Because what happens is while I'm at Mass, instead of praying, instead of looking to the Lord for my sustenance, instead of engaging in the spiritual reality with which I'm supposed to be engaged, I'm thinking about, this person doesn't dress right, that person thinks the wrong thing, I don't trust that person theologically, and all of my attention is on my external world and deciding whether or not these others are good or bad. And honestly, I loathe that mentality. I've gotten to the point now where there are certain points throughout the Mass, I won't even just open my eyes. Just close my eyes, pray, try to focus my attention on the Lord. And I think as Catholics, we need to call this out more and more in our spheres of influence. When we're engaged in dialogue, I think it's valuable to say, hey man, I'm not going to put so-and-so in a category. I'm not going to put Father so-and-so in a category. Now, I think it's healthy to say, I disagree with what Bishop so-and-so said, or what this encyclical wrote, or, you know, Pope Leo made this stance on this thing and I disagree with that. But I'm not going to waste the energy putting that person in the category for the sake of othering. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. The only category that matters is Christian. The only category that matters is Catholic. The only category that matters is how can I help that person love Jesus more, whether I agree with their theology or their politics. And the other problem with this is that most of the time we don't even know. We just look at the externals, or we hear a statement, or we hear a few sentences, and we by default just go, oh no, that person is rad trad. They're obviously bad. That person is a liberal or a woke person. Well, they're by default not in, they're not actually Catholic. And I think that's really troubling. And I say that looking into my own soul. I don't know these people's story. I don't know what they're wrestling with, what demons haunt them in the night. I don't know anything. And to judge on the externals is foolishness. And I'll use myself as an example, because I've seen this happen pretty regularly. People see me. They see the rings, the bracelets, the headband, the barefoot sandals. Love my barefoot sandals. They see all of that. They know I'm an artist, and they think, oh, this guy's probably pretty liberal. And I get that from people. Oh, this guy's, he's probably woke, probably. Or I have the other thing happen. I'll be in conversation with somebody, and they'll hear my thoughts on the Latin Mass, or on Eucharistic ministers, or different forms of prayer, and they'll automatically assume that I'm rad trad, despite my appearance. And the reality is I don't fit into either of those categories, nor do I care to. One of my own sinful pride issue is automatically buck against labels. So if you think I'm rad trad, I'm probably going to act a little bit more liberal. And if you think I'm liberal, I'm probably going to act a little bit more conservative. It's all foolishness. It's all foolishness, and none of it helps us grow in our spirituality. You can look to the Lord and His 12 disciples as the best example of this. God called a group of 12 guys, each of whom is radically different. Now, sure, I'm pretty confident that St. Peter and St. Andrew, relatively similarly minded. St. James and his brother St. John, they're probably relatively similar minded because they grew up together. But if you look at St. Matthew the tax collector, and you look at St. Simon the Zealot, and you think about what the Lord did by calling those two guys not only to live together, but to be brothers. That is a radical change in the common practice of their day and age. St. Matthew, as a tax collector, basically sold out his people. Worked for the Romans, did things that according to Jewish law were permanently, I'd say it that way, made him permanently unclean, and made him loathsome in the eyes of his people. And you take the opposite end of the spectrum and you look at St. Simon the Zealot. That dude was radically in love with God, to the point where he agreed with a philosophy that meant the kingdom of God had to be brought with the knife. And if possible, the Romans were to be permanently removed, and anyone who served the Romans or helped the Romans was to be permanently removed with the knife. And then you look at what Jesus did by taking a zealot and a tax collector and bringing them together. They should have fought like cats and dogs all the time. Simon, according to his upbringing and training, probably shouldn't say it that way, should have removed Matthew permanently in his sleep. But he didn't. And then these two guys go on to be brothers in a movement that changed the world. But we as Catholics don't seem able to do that. We find it difficult, if not impossible, to sit at Mass with somebody who thinks differently than we do about the Latin Mass. We find it difficult to express brotherly or sisterly love to those that we find on the other end of our political spectrum. And I am the chiefest of sinners in this category. And I don't want to be. It's not mine to think or feel that way. Mine is to love as Christ called me to love. Not just the ones I agree with, but everybody. And I find that deeply difficult. But that's what I want to encourage us to do. We have got to stop labeling our brothers and sisters in the church as other. Whatever that other is for you, rad, trad, liberal, woke, doesn't matter. We have got to stop labeling each other. We got to stop labeling, period. It's not helpful. It doesn't help us grow closer to Christ. And if ever there was a season of time for us to give this up, Lent is the time. Lent is definitely the time to stop labeling somebody. You want to experience the true meaning of Lent. Find ways to give and to love to those that you find on the opposite end of your beliefs. That would be a beautiful way to spend your Lenten season. And I say all of that looking in the viewfinder at myself. I think we can do better. I think we can love better. And that's what I want to challenge and encourage you to do. Stop labeling. Stop othering. And embrace the unity that Christ calls us to in brotherly love. I hope you find that challenging, but I also hope you find it encouraging. I'm going to turn this off now and see if I can go practice what I preach. And thanks so much for being here. Hope you have an amazing rest of your day. Till I see you next time, hope you're having an amazing Lent. Keep climbing.